Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and David and I are here today to talk about balance. And the word itself, it feels like most people, especially in this time in world history where there's literally nothing balanced about what's going on. Emotions are extreme, actions are extreme, words are extreme. And somehow on the Kabbalistic calendar, we are called this week to bring our lives and our energies and our efforts into a state of equilibrium. And we're going to talk about what that means and how to do it on today's episode. Weekly Energy Boost is a 7-day spiritual weather forecast where David and I and our guests provide our listeners with the most powerful and practical tools to navigate the coming 7 days. We do that by delving into the wisdom of Kabbalah and our own personal experiences and picking out the nuggets that are going to help you in the coming week. But obviously those nuggets can be used any time of the week, any week of the year, any year of your life. And if you have been alive in the last few weeks, you know that these are not easy times, no matter who you are, where you live. In fact, these past few weeks, every episode we've dedicated some time to talking about how every year in this time of year, in the month of Scorpio, emotions run high. People are not balanced. Things are very black and white, very, you're either my friend or you're my enemy. You're either in or you're out. There's no in between. And it's very hard, not only if you're a Scorpio, but simply living in this month, being a human being affected by this energy. Just look at yourself for the last few weeks. How many times have you gone to either extreme judgment, harshness, criticism, accusations, just anger and rage? And then the other extreme, which sometimes, even though in a positive sense, it could be kindness, mercy, generosity, compassion, on the extreme level, the opposite of that intensity can be apathy, denial, ignoring, escaping. And we want to be careful that we're cognizant of where we land on the spectrum most naturally and take those steps to bring ourselves more to the middle ground. David.
Well, this is a time we have to think about what people are reaching out to us most about. And it's two things. It's what's happening in the world, and it's also cosmically what's happening in the month of Scorpio. And we know that the Bible is kind of a spiritual manual for all the souls of humanity. Kabbalah is deciphering the Bible. That's why it's so powerful. It's getting down to the nitty-gritty of what is energy and what is a system of how to connect to that energy. And that's all of what we talk about. We want our listeners to always remember there is a rule book, an outline, a system by which we can conduct our lives in order to avoid falling into the chaos. And that doesn't mean that we are ignoring the chaos or the pain and suffering, but that means what it does mean is what can we do ourselves? How can we elevate our own consciousness and come from a strong and stable and balanced place in order to be a channel and make a difference? And we see this most commonly with athletes. If you think of boxers before they get in the ring, it's once you've done the physical training, and the physical training must be done, when you're in the ring, it's 95% mental. It's 95% consciousness. It's being able to be in the zone and be a channel. And that's what aligns your body. That's what aligns your mind, your spirit, your soul. And that's what's going to determine the outcome of the fight. And so wherever you are in the world listening to this and whatever you're going through, whether it's in your own personal life or you're just so taken aback by what's going on around you, remember what we know for sure. The world needs you to stabilize your consciousness. The world needs you to have strong consciousness. The world needs you to have certainty, to protect the castle, as we say. And the castle is consciousness. If my day is filled with doubts, anxiety, worry, cortisol, going up and down, we are not effective, not for our own families, not for our own community, and definitely not for the world.
And staying in that reactive space buy-in within itself is a problem, right? It's not, I think a lot of us look at our reaction to a situation. The situation is the problem, and my reaction is the effect of that. Kabbalah turns it around and says, your reaction is actually a cause.
Right.
How does that work? If David and I taught a class a few weeks ago, and one of the things he inspired the students to do was to speak words of kindness, to give compliments, to appreciate, but verbally appreciate, not just in your mind or in your heart, think about how blessed you are, but really to walk the earth with the goal of elevating the people and the situations, the places around you with kindness and goodness. Now, why is that smart business? Because according to Kabbalah, every thought, word, and action plants a seed. So even if you're not in the best mood and you plant the seed, you know, your barista hands you the coffee and you say, I really appreciate that you did that for me, or thank you so much, my day is better because of you, something meaningful. You've planted a seed in your own life and in the garden of the world for a future positive energy to be released, whether it's a miracle, what we call coincidence, something, you know, being in the right place at the right time. Only goodness can come from that those positive words or that positive action. The challenge is in this time, and any time we find ourselves, you could be any month of the year, any year of your life, struggling with some aspect of reality. And I feel like all of us as human beings right now, we are struggling with some part of reality, again, whether personal or on a larger scale. Any time that we react in anger, in judgment, with and justifiably so. We're not talking about, you know, your toast is burnt, so you go into a flying rage. We're talking about there's definitely good reason today to be angry, to feel pain, to seek revenge, to want to retaliate. But the Kabbalists teach that is just not smart. Because at the end of the day, your words of hate, your words of anger, your words of revenge come back in the garden of your life. And of course, collectively, it's contributing to creating a negative environment. But how really this week is asking us, how can you take all of that, what we would call negative, and again, that's subjective, because if you can convert it, if you can say, yes, I'm upset about what's going on, and as a result, instead of being a force for more darkness, I'm going to be a force for greater light, a force for unity, a force for kindness. It doesn't have to be outside of your home even, it can be inside your home. Then you've taken that situation that quote unquote is making you angry or making you hateful, and you're transforming it into something positive. And it's literally that positive energy that can counteract the darkness no matter where on the planet it's taking place.
This is the week where a person can tap into balance. And when you come from a balanced place, the Kabbalists explain that on the 10 dimensions, if we get a little deeper on the 10 dimensions, the most balanced dimension is called Tiferet. And literally it means beauty. And what is something that is beautiful? The Kabbalists explain it. It's the person who has balanced his or her desire to receive, his or her desire to share, and his or her own ability not to fall into constant doubts, worries, and instant gratification. All of a sudden, there's beauty. And we know that a person can be physically very beautiful. A person can have so much energy, power, money, or success, but still be energetically ugly if the balance of what's called the left column, the right column, and the central column Kabbalistically is not there. And I want to mention one thing, that if you feel your life not in balance, it does indicate that there's a part of us that believes, and we have a belief system, that not being in balance is the right thing to do. So for example, a lot of people feel that it is good to feel guilt, shame, pain at this time, or maybe worry, because maybe that's how I'm contributing to the fight. By me feeling bad, I am contributing. Because how dare I feel good? How dare I be balanced when the world is in imbalance? And so a lot of us have this belief system, well, I must suffer too if other people are suffering, and now we are united. But that is not how we help our family. That's not how we help our children. That's not how we help our friends. We have to put the mask on ourselves first. The proverbial oxygen mask has to come on ourselves first. And that's what consciousness is. The oxygen mask is consciousness, staying in a state of certainty, staying in a state of compassion, and reducing as much as possible your addiction to instant gratification during these times, which we probably want to use to numb ourselves.
And that doesn't mean that you deny or numb the feelings of sadness, pain, grief. The whole ethos of Kabbalah is to convert, is to transmute what isn't fruitful, what isn't going to create continuity, what isn't going to result in future goodness, to convert that into something that can. I know, for example, and to me, anger is the easiest target when it comes to thinking about negative emotion, feeling it, and then converting it, is that if you are angry about something that is going on, you can channel that anger. You can use that anger to fuel your passion for making a difference, for being part of the solution, for creating opportunities to help and support. Anger by and within itself is unhealthy on the body. It's unhealthy in a family unit. It's unhealthy in an organization. But if it can be tweaked to act as fuel instead, to manifest a specific purpose or mission or effort, then it's no longer negative. And there's a lot of people out there that are angry, that more people aren't angry, right? I think I had a conversation with one of our friends a couple of weeks ago, and she was telling me that part of what's so difficult about what's happening is seeing her friends' responses or lack of responses to what's going on, and feeling like you're catching people with their pants down. Right. You know, who our friends are is really coming out in response to the chaos that's happening in the world and in the Middle East. And you're finally seeing people for who they are. Right. So I said to her, listen, better that you know than you pretend or you stay in the dark. But at the same time, how can you use those realizations, that understanding for good, and not allow yourself, because every human being is a microcosm, right? So whatever is happening in me, I am simply a reflection of what's happening in the world, and vice versa. So if I'm upset or hurt, what am I doing? I'm actually contributing to the negativity, even if I'm not raging, even if I'm just disappointed in my friends. So again, I want to emphasize, we're not talking here, I think a big part of being mentally strong and healthy is being in touch with what's going on inside you, allowing the feelings to be there, but then deciding, how do the feelings affect me? That's the pivotal moment that determines whether the emotion is positive or negative, is how it affects you. And I want to give a little kind of litmus test for every one of our listeners to check themselves. When you do something wrong, quote unquote, you make a mistake, you fail, you don't land where you wanted to land, what is your tendency? Is it, like David said, guilt, shame, beating yourself up, harsh, perfectionism, self-criticism? Or is it, no big deal, not that bad, I'm such a good person anyway, it cancels out whatever happened, right? That there's across the human spectrum, there's those two extremes of destroying oneself and also ignoring the opportunity to grow. So if you're the type of person that self-destructs in the face of failure or mistake or falling short, you want to do the opposite, right? Bring yourself shake it off. Like it's not that big of a deal. And if you're the type of person that shakes it off easily and thinks it's not that big of a deal, moving toward that middle point, that tiferet that David was talking about, is more about checking yourself. What can I take responsibility for? How can I do things differently next time? What is this pattern that I keep falling into it? What triggers me into that pattern? And how can I eliminate the trigger in the first place?
One thing we can all do this week to rebalance, the fastest way to rebalance comes from the fastest way that what causes us imbalance, which is when we try to control what someone else is feeling. If you have efforts right now that are towards controlling how someone feels, controlling what someone does, controlling what someone does for you or how they respond to you, maybe they're not appreciative. Maybe they're not saying thank you. Maybe they're not saying I'm sorry. Maybe they're not closing a space with you. Maybe they're not acting in a way that you think they should act. We have to let that go. We have to let that go right now because that's a test for us. The reason why these people around us are not complying is not personal. It is the Creator setting up a test for you to see if you can trust the process. We need to change through inspiration, not change through control. And this is a really big Kabbalistic concept, is that we all see a vision of perfection. This actually, we all kind of see what things need to be, and we see things about other people and how they need to change. And these visions are actually very truthful. The free will we have is how we inspire people to get there. There are two ways. And this is the test, and this is our free will. We are shown one way, which is by force, by negativity, by control and manipulation. And we have the free will to do it that way. We are given the opportunity to do it that way. But that always results in chaos. It may not seem that way initially. The end result is chaos. However, the way that is a little bit more difficult might take longer, might require more effort, but has the guaranteed result, is through what's called mercy, through compassion, through inspiration, through being an example of what you want that other person to do, and through prayer. We talk about this so many times in our classes. Kabbalistic prayer, which is my request to the universe, which opens up my vessel. Forget about the universe, forget about the Creator. It's not that we're changing the Creator when we pray. We are opening dimensions inside of us when we make the effort to pray out loud. Talking out loud to nature, to the universe, is actually opening up those gates. So if you have someone who is hurting you or not complying with something that you think they should be doing, pray. Talk out loud to the Creator and say, I feel this way. I feel hurt. I feel upset. I feel like I want to control. I feel like I want to manipulate. I need help. Open my eyes. Show me what to do. There's no structure here. There are no rules. But this is actually how you get something done and have it last miraculously.
What's interesting is that the Kabbalists teach that each one of our souls are actually predisposed to one extreme or the other. That even when we're born, and it may sound like we are not in control, we don't have a choice, but our souls originate from either a very, what we call right column, merciful, kind, generous, maybe people-pleasing, over-giving base, or we originate from the natural frequency that we operate at is the opposite, harsher, more demanding, obviously more drive, more passion as well, but we're either one or the other. And you can, I believe that if you're listening to this podcast, you've achieved a certain level of awareness, and you can check yourself. Looking at my life until now, 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever years, I have definitely leaned toward one or the other. And the prescription on converting or bringing yourself back into a state of equilibrium is actually doing the opposite. Now, I can think of plenty of times that I have worked with individuals who definitely fall on the right side of the spectrum, not right or wrong, but right versus left, right side of the spectrum, where they're people-pleasing, they overgive, they are codependent, they are too accommodating, they always give people the benefit of the doubt, they have trouble setting boundaries, and we work together on the both spiritual and mental reasons why setting those boundaries and having greater desire and drive and expressing your needs and your wants is so important. And they're always afraid. Oh, I don't want to be too demanding. I don't want to be needy. I don't want to nag people. If you fall on the right side, you can never be too nagging, too needy. Everything that every desire you're going to express, every demand you're going to make is going to sound like, excuse me, what do you think if possibly we could, if it's okay with meaning it comes out in that people-pleasing, accommodating energy. When you're on the left side of the spectrum, which is the more harsh, demanding, judging, quick to react mode, the going back toward that middle, again, the goal is not for the right to go all the way to the left or the left to go all the way to the right. It's to find that middle ground, right? Where the highs aren't as high and the lows aren't as low. So you're not shaken as much in either direction, right? Because what ends up happening after an extreme high, again, this is all about balance. If you're hysterically excited one day, the crash the next day is a lot harder. So the idea is to bring ourselves into that balance and that equilibrium, even though the kindness and the compassion and the mercy seems like the hardest thing to do, doing it results in such a breakthrough for the individual itself, not in the area that they think. And again, this comes from not only reading about this in the ancient text, this is also seeing boots on the ground, putting this work into action, is that if you're able to rein in that forcefulness, that drive, that trampling over people tendencies, it literally creates miracles for you. And miracles for you means miracles for the world.
So what's the takeaway for all of our listeners this week? Practically, we all want to make a difference. We all want our voices to be heard. We all want to be a part of positive change. And we have to realize that if we are coming from a place of lack, that change can never happen. Our voices will not be heard. Our energy will be stopped literally at the border. And so we need to always remember, when we wake up in the morning, I got to come from the highest vibration. I have to come from a place of certainty. I have to come from a place of joy and happiness, even if my situation is not allowing me to be. It's okay if the physical world is not complying with your needs. You can still rise above that and maintain consciousness. You can tell yourself you have everything, even when you don't. You can tell yourself that you're in love, even when you're not. You can tell yourself that you're wealthy, even when you're lacking. This vibration is the starting point to be the cause and not the effect. We also talked about releasing control over others. Right now, I'm seeing it more often than before. We are trying to control the narrative of other people, and we are trying to convince people. Next time you're trying to communicate anything, don't come from the intention of convincing. Convincing means that I'm interfering with someone's free will. Come from a place of inspiring. Put the energy out there. Let go of the need for people to take that energy in the way that you want them to. Place it on the table. Put the buffet on the table. Let people choose a la carte what they would like to eat.
It's funny. I'm going over what we said as you asked, like, what's the bottom line here?
Yeah.
I guess I want to make sure that anyone who's listening doesn't take what we're saying as doomsday predictions, right? If you go back to any episode in the month of Scorpio that we have done in the last, 5 years that we're doing this podcast, we have talked about these same things, this energy intensity, the propensity for disasters to happen in this time, the oversensitivity and aggressiveness and defensiveness that people tend to have in this time. This is not something that's caused by world events. World events are often caused by this energy. And the reason we speak about these things is not so that you can say, all right, it's Scorpio season, I'm just going to hide in bed. The reason we talk about it is so we can say, okay, wait a second. Everyone around me, the entire world is being compelled to react, to be extreme, to be sensitive, to be harsh, to be vengeful. How can I be the remedy for that? So yes, I talk to people, all day long, and they're saying, well, the energy is so terrible. What can I do? The answer is don't react to the energy. Don't let those negative thoughts, those harsh feelings take over you. When David earlier mentioned use the example of being an athlete and how 95% of the work is in consciousness, it's a great metaphor. When you look at sports that are played on teams, right? Boxing, it's you, it's your consciousness, it's your fists, right? You're solely responsible for your 50% of the game. When you're on a team and you have to play both offense and defense, when you're on a team and you have to accommodate and account for whether harmonizing or conflicting energies, talents, and skills of the team around you, it's such a, I'm going to call it an immersive experience, because you're not only checking and managing your own thoughts, words, and actions, your own energy, your own consciousness, you also have to have everyone in your periphery on the board as well. And so my suggestion for everyone as we launch you off into the week is to be really observant, to be in a almost religious state of observation, noting who, what, where, and then how am I feeling? How did I receive that? What did I take from that? And be really reflective. Even don't be afraid in your conversations to say, what I heard you say was, or if I understood you right, you mean. Be as thorough about observing and taking in what's happening around you as possible. You know, especially with all of the misreporting that's happening, it makes me question even, I read a magazine about the latest nutritional trends or fashion, who's coming out with the best shoes next year. That could be made up too. Really I think one of the hardest things about what we share in these podcasts and the whole teaching of Kabbalah is how we have to be so in touch with who we are and so honest about who we are with ourselves. That by and within itself takes a huge amount of responsibility and a huge amount of awareness. So let's all commit this week to be that mindful, to be that non-biased. Not obviously there's a lot of bad and there's a lot of good taking place out in the world, but to be really neutral about how we are affected so that we can be contributing to the positive side of the scales and not the negative side of the scales. Last words, David.
I think you said it beautifully. This is definitely the week where the upper worlds is helping us make that shift in consciousness. And as the Zohar says, whatever you make the effort to do and have the desire to do, the Creator will help you.
Well said. So Weekly Energy Boost is available on all podcast platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. We want to invite you to check out our website, weeklyenergyboost.com, where you can find all the things we've been talking about. You can learn about our guests, read about what we're interested in, and of course, donate and support our podcast to keep making it possible. You can also shoot us an email from the website. And as always, the more you share, the more you like, the more you rate, review, and comment, the more eyes we get in front of. And we are so appreciative of all the work that our listeners are doing to get the word out there. Have a fabulous week, and we'll see you next week on the Weekly Energy Boost.